When the time comes that you're ready to have maybe kids or your parents' knees are starting to ache and they need a slightly lower car, the best bet you will always have is to go for an MPV. And usually people would go for the Toyota Innova, but today there is a car that can also challenge that. This is the 2023 GAC GN6, a 7-seater MPV. Today, let's see if this MPV right here is any good. Before we talk about anything else, let's start with its pricing. So the GAC GN6 retails for 1,350,000 pesos, which puts it at the same price bracket as a Toyota Innova E automatic at 1.375 million pesos. But what do you get right here compared to an Innova? Well, exterior styling wise, you will immediately see that it looks a little bit lower. That's because this is not a body-on-frame MPV. So this is a monocoque chassis. It's a little bit lower, and they would use that space for extra interior space, which we will see later. Here over at the front, there's nothing really noteworthy. I just like how the grille has a lot of chrome on it. You don't get LED headlights, but this pretty big lighting assembly looks pretty good. And on the side, you only get 16-inch rims. It's also worth noting that just like an Innova, you don't get sliding doors right here. For the size of this vehicle, it is slightly longer, wider, and also taller compared to a Toyota Innova, despite not looking the part because it just looks a little bit sleeker. While the front and the sides, there's nothing truly noteworthy about it. What I like about the rear end of the GAC GN6 is it kind of looks like a shrunk down Toyota Alphard. I mean, look at this spoiler effect up top. The third brake light is pretty big, and they even give you a light bar right here for extra modernness. Also, if you do open up this tailgate right here, which by the way isn't powered, you have these seats that can fold and tumble down. But what's very interesting right here is that the mechanism it uses is also very Toyota-esque. You see, the way you fold these seats reminds me of the mechanism you would get with the previous generation Toyota Sienna. And why that is interesting is because GAC is actually the partner of Toyota in China. So I'm pretty sure they use some of the Toyota magic right here. Before we talk about the interior, I want to talk about the ingress. It's really easy even if you're on the elderly side with a lot of knee issues or back issues. You're not going to have a problem with this one. And that is part of the appeal of these non-body on frame MPVs. When my grandfather sat inside this car yesterday, he had zero issues. Anyway, let's check the door thud. Excuse me for the coins, but yeah, the door thud sounds pretty good. It feels very solid. So while its competitors like the Innova E, for example, would have a very bare interior at that variant range, this one, it looks a lot more premium. Yes, you still do get a lot of hard touch plastics on your dashboard and even on the side, but it makes up for it with like these soft touch materials by the armrest on the side. You also get soft touch materials by the middle of the dashboard, and you even have a dual screen setup. The middle one, it is an 8-inch touchscreen with a reverse camera, as well as Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Very convenient. And for your instrument cluster, you get analog gauges on the side and a trip computer digital 7 inches on the center. The steering wheel is also tilt and telescoping, so you can find your perfect driving position. Well, almost, because the problem right here is if this is the center of my chest, it's a little bit slanted to the side. It's ever so slightly moved towards the right, so you do feel a little bit twisted when you are driving this car. Nonetheless, you get so much other features right here that is virtually unheard of in this segment. For example, you get an electronic parking brake, you get auto hold, you even have a center armrest right here that is adjustable, and you also get leather seats, and it looks really good with all this whiteness on it. The driver's seat though and the passenger seat, they are all just manually adjustable. You even get a sunroof up top, and it is pretty big. You also get 4 airbags and reverse sensors. Just some quirks of the GN6. So while you do get push button start here and you even get remote engine start, you can only smartly unlock your vehicle by having the key fob with you as you approach the vehicle. But there's no handle or button on the door handle that you press to lock it. So if you want to lock your car, you still have to press manually on your key fob. Also, while there are these 2 cup holders right here by the center, they're too tiny. The only thing that's going to fit right here are those extremely tiny paper cups. Now, for the most important seats in an MPV, the second row seats, first of all, ingress is excellent, even better than the front because these doors open really wide. Now, check the door thud. Also sounds pretty good. And you know, right here, this is something that you simply cannot usually get in its price point, because you get captain seats also wrapped in this beautiful white leather, and you even have these armrests right here. Now you're gonna say, well, this is kind of weird. Why does the armrest go all the way down? Aha, you see, this is actually an attention to detail on GAC's part, because once you do recline these seats all the way, it's gonna be in the perfect position. That way it can go just like that. And if you want to sit normally, you can simply raise this up, and it has a ratchet system to find the perfect height for your, well, your elbows. Also, the rear seats, they can also slide forward to give space to the third row passengers. And this even comes with this removable footrest. That way your feet don't go flat like this and kind of hurt your tendons. This is a lovely place to be. You even get your own map pockets, you have a jug holder on the side, and you get your own air vents up top. Plus, you can also adjust your fan speed through the center console. My only complaint is it doesn't seem to have a single cup holder in here. So if you have some cups, well, tough luck. You can also get supremely comfortable with the butterfly ears here by the headrest, just like an airplane. Finally, we move on over towards the third row, and right here, surprisingly, there is still enough space for a full-size adult, as long as you ask the second row seat passengers to kindly just unrecline just a little bit. They don't even need to slide their seats forwards anymore. This is perfectly fine. Even for longer journeys, I'm not gonna have an issue right here. If there's gonna be 3 of us right here, well, I might complain after an hour and a half or so, but 2 people, it's perfect right here. Also, if you unfortunately get the rear seats, the third row seats, well, there's something to make up for it. Well, you get the one and only cup holders for the rear seat passengers. Well, one on each side, that is. But oddly, only the driver's side third row seat passenger gets a USB-A port. So now we drive the GAC GN6, and I really love driving this vehicle because despite being like a 7-seater big MPV, it's so light to drive. The steering is light, there's a lot of power in it, and it feels a lot smaller than it actually is. It's pretty nimble for such a big car such as this one. First, I'll tell you about the things I like. So, the power. You have a 1.5-liter turbocharged gasoline engine making 171 horsepower and 265 Newton meters of torque. It feels very torquey, and since the car is pretty light, despite having similar power figures to its competitors, it feels much faster. What I don't like too much about it though is the transmission that it is paired with. So this uses a 6-speed Aisin automatic transmission, a Toyota transmission. And if I didn't know any better, I would have thought that this is a dual clutch transmission because it tends to get a little bit jerky at first and second gear, and it also kind of rolls down a hill at times. But don't worry, you do have an auto hold function right here. Next thing I like about it is the visibility. So massive raked windshield up front, massive windows on the side, and if you want to park this car, there's even a reverse camera that, although not the clearest, is not bad. Only slight complaint about it is this really thick A-pillar. There is a quarter window, but it's virtually useless just because of how thick that A-pillar is. Next thing I like is the steering. So there's a couple of drive modes in this car, and you can also adjust the throttle response together with the steering weight. Leave this in eco mode or comfort mode, it's perfectly great for the city or even the highway. But if you put this into sport mode, especially on the highway, it's a little bit too sensitive and kind of dangerous feeling. So just, don't ever put it in sport mode. Despite being a pretty large vehicle and not being diesel powered, it still manages to return pretty good fuel economy. So in heavy city traffic, I was able to return 9 kilometers per liter, and on the highway you can do around 14.7 kilometers per liter. Also, on the highway, it remains pretty quiet. I haven't seen any other car in this class that remains this quiet on the highway, because even if you're going the speed limit already of around 100, tire noise and wind noise is not too apparent, despite also having these pretty big wing mirrors on the side. Lovely. And then there's the suspension. So the Innova, for example, we talked about how it's body on frame, and this is a monocoque chassis. You really do feel the difference when you go over bumps and uneven roads. This is just so much softer. It has way more give. but it's not too floaty. It's not gonna upset the stomachs of, well, you, the driver, as well as your passengers. This is a perfect car to chauffeur around your family in, or to use it as your errand car. It's just good. It's like you're having a sedan, but in a bigger form. It's pretty okay to drive, but it's also very comfortable and very spacious. So once again, let's go back to the pricing. The GAC GN6 cost 1,350,000 pesos. It is just about the same price as a bare bones variant of its competitor, yet it gives you so much in here that you could ever want from an MPV. It's fuel efficient, it's spacious, it's comfortable, and it also has tons of power on tap. Well, at least for an MPV. So really, at this price, I think this is a very overlooked vehicle, and this would make a great alternative to our other traditional options.